undergrad student pursuing a bilingual Bachelor of Sciences at the University of Alberta, the campus Saint-Jean. Her career in research has spanned 4 years, quite impressive, undertaking multiple projects in a diverse range of fields. And since 2018, she's been leading a cross-sectional study investigating the knowledge, attitudes, and practices regarding malaria. This project is focusing on the Francophone immigrants residing in the Edmonton region who have originated from sub-Saharan Africa, as many of us know, an endemic region with one of the highest rates of malaria cases and deaths in the world. She's completed multiple projects through the U of A cell biology department investigating genetic and proteomic components of paroxysmal biogenesis disorders, a spectrum of lipid metabolism disorders in the field of developmental biology. And Taylor completed a literary review investigating the cellular mechanisms of therapeutic resistance of small cell lung cancer, translating the findings into French and structuring them into a research paper. Having won multiple research awards already and grants, her passion for research in medicine has driven her goal to one day becoming an oncologist specializing in molecular genetics. All right, so the floor is yours, Taylor.
Awesome, thank you, Dominique. I'm going to share my screen. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you so much. So hello everyone, my name is Taylor Hanna, and today I will be giving an overview of my project, examining malaria preventative measures among Francophone African immigrants living in the Edmonton region. Now, before I start, I would just like to extend a big thank you to the organizers for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today. So a little bit of context, malaria is a life-threatening disease caused by Plasmodium parasites, with the most deadly form being caused by Plasmodium falciparum. Malaria is responsible for over 409,000 deaths worldwide in 2019 per the World Malaria Report 2020. And as Dominique had mentioned, the risk of contracting malaria is the highest in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, globally, 30,000 imported cases of malaria are reported. Imported cases are cases that are contracted in endemic regions and then diagnosed and treated in non-endemic regions. So Canada sees approximately 420 cases of imported malaria. There have been a few Canadian studies done studying the imported malaria. However, they have been predominantly focused in Eastern Canada, mostly Ontario as well as Quebec. And there has been one in BC, thank you to McLean et al. Now, the main source of imported malaria do come from VFRs, or travelers who have returned to endemic regions to visit friends and relatives. So our demographic of interest for this study were IFAs, or Francophone immigrants immigrants, either first or second generation, originating from sub-Saharan Africa. They could be male or female, but had to be at least 18 years of age and living in the Edmonton metro region at the time of study. So why was this the demographic of interest for us? Well, IFAs are an at-risk group as they are most likely to be VFRs. Now, VFRs have been previously identified as the most likely source of imported malaria, both globally as well as here in Canada. VFRs are also less likely to seek healthcare advice pre-travel, and they're more likely to overestimate their immunity. Now, IFAs are a minority population here in Alberta due to the fact that they are Francophone, and this population has been increasing over the last 2 decades, not only in the Edmonton metro region, but in Alberta as a whole. So the methods of this study, it was a cross-sectional study spanning multiple disciplines. The recruitment occurred from 2018 to 2019, and the study was carried out via a survey that contained specific questions that allowed for the analysis of prevention practices. So we started off with 409 submissions. We had a few that were excluded for a variety of reasons, and we wound up with 382 participants for our final analysis. So in the analysis, we had roughly the same amount of males as females. The majority of the respondents did fall into the age categories of 18 to 44. And although all of our respondents were Francophone, we had 84% that had indicated that French was the language in which they are the most at ease. So we had 77% that indicated they did have a family physician. However, 58% of those indicated they did not have a French-speaking family physician, even though, as I had mentioned, 84% indicated French is a language in which they're the most at ease. So this brought up some questions for us on whether or not perhaps language barriers would be a factor in the access of healthcare. So the majority of the trips taken, oh, I'm so sorry. We had almost half of our respondents that had taken a trip to an endemic region in the last 5 years. Now, the last 5 years is pertinent due to the fact that there are some strains of malaria that can lie dormant in the body for up to 5 years, and some that can lie dormant for even longer. And the average trip taken, the average trip length was 34 days. And this is also important due to the fact that that is an adequate amount of time to allow for the increase of exposure to travel-related illnesses such as malaria. So the majority of the trips taken were to sub-Saharan Africa, although we did have some respondents that had taken trips to other endemic regions. It is also important to note that the mean travel length to the African continent was 36 days, whereas travel to other endemic regions had a mean travel length of 18 days. So the top is a graph by the World Health Organization that shows the endemic regions in the world, and the bottom is a heat map of the trips taken by our respondents. So the World Health Organization recommends for malaria prevention methods, obviously to avoid mosquitoes, as the female Anopheles mosquito is the vector of malaria. So to do this, wear protective clothing, sleep under treated bed nets, using insect repellent, either cream or spray, as well as using doctor-prescribed chemoprophylaxis or anti-malarial medication prior to, during, as well as after returning from travel. So first off, we asked our respondents if they had sought medical advice pre-travel. We had 47% that indicated that they had. However, we had 36.2% indicated they sought no medical advice pre-travel. When we asked the reasons for not seeking medical advice pre-travel, the main reason was that it simply wasn't worth it, followed by not used to doing it. And interestingly enough, only 3% indicated that a language barrier was the reason for not seeking medical advice pre-travel. Next, we asked about pre-travel precautions. So here we had almost 70% that indicated that they had taken preventative measures pre-travel. However, again, we had a considerable amount of people who indicated they took no pre-travel preventative measures whatsoever. So again, we asked the reason for not taking pre-travel preventative measures. And here it was interesting. We had almost half of the respondents indicated that previously acquired immunity from living in an endemic region was the main reason for not taking pre-travel preventative measures. Next, followed by not worth it, as well as not used to doing it. We then asked about precautions during travel. So here we had more that had taken precautions during travel. However, almost 1 in 5 indicated they had taken no precautions during travel. We again asked what the reasons were, with the main one being that it simply wasn't worth it, followed again by not used to doing it, or they were not informed that they had to. And here, interestingly enough, we only had 8.3% that indicated acquired immunity was now playing a factor. So some important takeaways from this data here. We have 48% of the respondents who did not seek healthcare practitioners' advice pre-travel, with the most common reason being that it simply wasn't worth it. 69% of travelers took pre-travel precautions, in contrast to 78% that used on-site preventative measures. And perhaps the most important takeaway from this data is that out of the 47% that sought medical advice pre-travel, 91% used pre-travel precautions, 89% used precautions during travel, and 86% used both. Now, this highlights the importance of having a pre-travel medical consult, as we're seeing elevated numbers of this cohort taking the recommendations of the medical professionals and applying them during travel. So despite a lack of French-speaking doctors, it didn't seem that language barriers was a main reason for a lack of pre-travel medical consult. Excuse me. So we did a literary review, and we found similar results in terms of preventative measures in Santos et al. In 1999, who surveyed Canadians in the Toronto Pearsons International Airport that were traveling to India, and they identified misconceptions about malaria risk, both in terms of contracting as well as the risk of fatality of malaria, as well as a lack of preventative measures taken as the main barriers that were preventing effective disease management. More recently, McCarthy et al. In 2019 found that, again in Toronto, endemic region destined travelers had low use of chemoprophylaxis, where only about 10% were actually using chemoprophylaxis, and even less were adhering to the regimens. So I would like to acknowledge our fantastic research team here at the University of Alberta, as well as the multiple students that have worked on this project, both former and current, including our recruitment team. And I would also like to extend a thank you to the recruitment sites that helped us mobilize this cohort. Also, a big thank you to our funders, the Consortium National de Formation en Santé with Health Canada, as well as the University of Alberta and Campus Saint-Jean. Thank you.